Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformations. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Life Transformation Radio. I'm your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and international best-selling author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 90 countries. So whether it's your first time joining us or you've been listening to us for some time, I want to thank you to those who are listening from around the world. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here, we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing, highlighting that transformational moment that changed our lives, and how we use it to then transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live every day from Tuesday through Friday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Blog Talk Radio Network. You can join our Facebook group at Life Transformation Radio Community and never miss an episode by subscribing where you listen to podcasts. Life Transformation Radio can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, CastBox, Himalaya app, Google Podcasts, and we're available on Pandora. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Life Transformation Radio. If you'd like, leave us a rating and review and let us know what you think of the show. On the show, my guests are entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, podcasters, authors, amazing human beings that are impacting the world around them. And my guest today does exactly that. If you have any questions for any of the guests that I bring on the show during our live broadcast, go ahead and give us a call at 657-383-1109. Again, the number is 657-383-1109. And with that, I want to welcome back a previous guest who's returning to us today, my friend Mike McDonnell. Mike, welcome back.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for having me on again.
Dude, I'm pumped, man. I always like having guests return to the show and kind of update us on what's been happening since the last time we talked and kind of cool things you got going on. And, I'm excited to talk to you again, man.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 6 months. A lot can happen in 6 months.
Yep. Yeah, for sure, man. So the title of this episode is My Introvert Journey to Being Visible with author Mike McDonnell. He's a speaker, a podcaster, entrepreneur, and coach that has cystic fibrosis and diabetes, but hasn't let that stop him. After going from hiding in the shadows, invisible, to being in the spotlight, sharing his message, he now helps others do the same. Mike returns to the show today to promote his newest book, My Introvert Journey to Being Visible, which is available on Amazon. If you feel like you're an introvert, you will want to listen to this episode. The link right there, you can order the book at the bit.ly link. It's a bit.ly link, bit.ly/Michael Bryan Book. And right there in the show notes, you can also listen to our first episode together from June 3rd, which was titled From the Shadows to the Spotlight. It's an amazing episode. Mike goes into his story in depth, talks about how to go from unseen, invisible, to becoming a national, a global, visible entrepreneur, coach, speaker, podcaster, everything you need to do to get into the spotlight. So I highly encourage you to go listen to that episode together. His Instagram and Facebook links are right there in the show notes. Go ahead and send him a friend request and get to know Mike and pick up his book. So, Mike, let's talk about your book, man. I'm excited. The Introvert Journey to Being Visible. I got to say, when I hear about introverts, I am totally not an introvert. I'm the exact opposite. I thrive on energy. I thrive on the spotlight. I thrive on being a personable person. But some don't, man. Some introverts always struggle with, what content do I put out? What do I say? Do I use video? Do I use audio? Do I just do written? And most of them will do written because they either don't like their voice, or they don't think that people want to hear them, or they just don't want to do video because they don't know how to interact with the camera. So I think it's very important that you wrote this book, from going from an introverted kind of stance to using that momentum to become visible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware that people that are also extroverted also have similar stories as well. Like you mentioned, not really liking your own voice. I mean, I'm not so sure that's just unique to introverts. I imagine that's more of an insecurity than a personality. I'm imagining it anyway. I mean, I am an introvert, so I can't speak to the other end of the spectrum, but many people struggle with what to create anyway. I think that the extra layer is, if you are like a naturally more quiet person, there's an extra layer there because doing anything is difficult because it's not your natural state. It's not something you've been doing. It's not something that you're used to doing. And it's a skill like anything else. And part of the issue is because it doesn't feel good initially, a lot of introverts don't get to the point where it becomes more natural, because most of it's out of habit anyway. It's the same with everything that you ever do. If you don't do it for a month, the first few times it's a little bit rusty, you know? It's not going to be perfect. And I think that feeling of it not feeling good can actually stop people from doing it badly, but then getting better just out of repetition.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point that it does feel weird. I think even for extroverts, I think it might maybe sometimes feels weird doing Facebook Lives, because a lot of us are used to talking to people, not just a camera. But I mean, I think that it's a learned behavior to get in front of a camera, to get out there and talk to people. You know, I just think it's a learned behavior, and I don't know why someone would be introverted. Somebody at one point told them, I just don't like people, or I don't like large crowds, or maybe I'm just introverted. Maybe I just like to keep to myself. I'm not a big fan of labels. I think introverts maybe, and coming from somebody who wrote the book, you can kind of expand on this, but I think maybe introverts are comfortable calling themselves introvert so that they don't have to get in front of people, or they don't have to give a message, or they can just operate behind the scenes. You know, they're not a spotlight hog. I know plenty of people that are like, give me the credit. Oh, it's all me. Hey, everybody, look at me. But some people are not like that. They're very comfortable being the number 2, number 4, number 6 person in a company and working behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think that when you go a bit deeper, there's always going to be a story there, whether they like the spotlight for that sort of, I don't want to say ego, but some people do thrive on getting that positive feedback. And I think that what it tends to come down to is it's easy to do certain things because it's something that you want to do anyway. You know, a lot of extroverts tend to want to do these things anyway because it's what they thrive on. You gain a bit of extra, a boost, if you will, when they have the interaction or they have the attention almost. Whereas an introvert doesn't necessarily need that to feel that way. I'm not so sure they are, I guess, in denial or trying to avoid it. I mean, from my own experience, it was easier for me not to do it than to do it. And that's something that tends to put introverts off, because eventually that becomes a habit as well. That becomes comfortable as well. Building habits is the same process no matter what it is. Eating healthily, eating unhealthily, being on camera, not being on camera, writing, not writing. I mean, I started writing my book when I was actually busy writing articles and blog posts. And then I started to realize that my writing got, I wouldn't say better, but I was able to write more easier. So at first it was like 300 words was tough. Then it became 600. Then it became 800. Then it became 1,000. And then when I started writing the book, it was like, okay, if I average about 3,000 words a chapter, that's not so bad. Meanwhile, 6,000 words in, I'm trying to finish a chapter. I don't know how to end it. How's this going to finish? So I think that it is something that you can learn either way. But the process of building a habit can be, okay, well, being quiet can become a habit. Just sticking to what's comfortable can be a habit just as much as testing yourself. Because everything that I do now, I wouldn't have been doing 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Wouldn't have even dreamed of being on stage 20 years ago. But you have to realize that in the beginning it's going to be hard anyway. But I think that when you're extroverted, you have different feelings or different sensations in the moment that introverts don't have. They don't have the same experience with their feelings around it because it isn't their natural state. So they're going to move away from not just what's comfortable or uncomfortable, but what's unsafe for them or what's not their natural state anyway. So you've got the combination of unsafe, uncomfortable, unnatural, and something that's actually quite stressful anyway. Because public speaking is one of the most stressful situations we can be in. So you've got a combination of all of those things, where an extrovert's just got like, I've not done this before, let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I 100% agree. So talk about the book, man. Obviously, I think the book is for introverted people, but talk about what the book is about, who it's for, why they should read it.
Well, one of the things that I realized, going back when I very, very first started the online business, and this was realizing that just me doing what I'm doing was enough to inspire people, energize people, encourage people just by me doing that because of the health conditions, because of what I was able to do despite those things. I found myself sometimes just challenging myself because if I was to document it, write about it, tell people about it, whether I fail or succeed, didn't really matter that much in the moment because I had this role model / other people get a benefit just by me doing me, if you will. That was enough at the time. So I started to write the book in terms of the content just by living my life in a way that would encourage people to live their life their way. I didn't go on stage with the intention of like being a paid speaker traveling around the world. I knew it was going to be tough. So I went in with the just get through it, just get to the other end and see what happens. You've got no choice now because it's the most scalable way of spreading your message is public speaking, whether it's recorded, virtual or otherwise. Speaking to groups of people is the best way of doing it. There's not much better than that. So when I first started, I thought, okay, let's just give it a go. Let's just try it. And looking back now, I realized that even if I failed, just the feelings I felt, the sensations, what I had to do it, just to get up there, that can be enough just to show people, this is what it was like for me. If it's easier for you, great. But if it's harder or similar, that shows you and gives you a bit of hope, I guess, that doesn't mean that you have to stop. Because so many people don't realize how bad it has to be for them to stop and get the message and say, look, this is too far. You are pushing it too much. You should probably have a breather. You should probably have a week off, reset. And there are so many people that don't know what their limits are. They don't know, like, if I feel this way, does this mean I stop or does this mean I keep going? And hopefully the book shows people, because it is a bit of an inside the mind kind of thing. I share like what I'm thinking, what I'm telling myself, what my body does, what did I do to sort of cope. There's a lot of coping mechanisms in there, a lot of lessons in there. And that's what it's about. It takes people through that journey to show people that, look, it can get pretty bad, but you still have a choice whether or not you push it and you get through it, or you stop and you do something different. And hopefully it shows people that you don't have to stop just because it's difficult.
There you go. I like that, man. I like that approach. I think that's really, really good. And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing and when I say it back, that you don't have to be tied down to one way. You don't have to tie down, like, oh, this is the way you got to do it, and it doesn't benefit the introvert. You know, like I said, you got audio, written, visual. If you're an introverted person, then write a book. You can write a bunch of books, and you probably would never have to go on video or audio, whatever. Or if you're just afraid of, you know, the video, because for whatever reason, then do some podcasts. That's a great way to do it. Radio. You know, I always joke about, I got a face for radio. You know, I got a face for radio. So some people live their life like that. And some people are like, oh no, I can't go on TV. Oh my gosh, what would I? People are going to watch me. Well, that's the point. That's the point, to get visible. And just to piggyback on my comments earlier, you know, I don't know if it's denial. I don't know what it is. You know, maybe they're afraid of judgment. Maybe introverted people are introverted for a reason because they've been judged their whole life. Maybe they've been told that they're not good enough. Maybe they were told, no, just don't speak up. Just be quiet. Like, don't speak up. No. Just mind your own business and live your life with your head in the sand. And some parents may say that. You know, I'll even take it a little step further. And some people say, like, you know, snitches get stitches, like all that stuff, and like, don't tattletale, and like, you know, so they just shut up about everything. They don't talk about nothing. How's it going? Good. How was your weekend? How's your family? Good. Like, they don't say nothing, you know. So I don't know if that's just a personality thing. I don't know if they're afraid of judgment. But I like what you said, man. I think it's a great approach to actually getting out of that comfort zone. And you know, it may not feel good at first. A lot of new things don't feel good at first, you know. But the willingness to try, I would think, would inspire just as many people to try as it would your message would inspire people to make a change as well. So I think it's twofold. I think introverts have a great positioning strategy to where, look at me, I'm introverted. This takes a lot of personal energy for me and confidence to do this, and you can too. And oh, by the way, I have a message, right? So,
yeah. I mean, there is probably a lot of truth to what you're saying. I mean, for me, it was health conditions. It was being told that I wasn't being told that I wasn't good enough, but there was a massive implication there because I had this thing that nobody else had that didn't make me the same as them. It actually made me feel not as good as them, you know. So mine's a bit more, I guess, tangible than someone just being told to be quiet for so long that it becomes a natural state. So there's a lot to be said for how people are parented. There's a lot to be said for who they spend their time with. I mean, an introvert can probably become an extrovert quite quickly if they spend a lot of time with other extroverts, because they'll think that that's the status quo, that's normal. And very often we do adhere to what's normal, depending on where you live, the people you spend your time with, all those things. And very often it's a social thing. It's a social, issue, because if you spend enough time with enough people doing a particular thing, you'll learn how to do it. You'll figure out who you need to be able to do it. And if that's different from who you are right now, I mean, most people will change who they are before they lose their friends. That's just the way it tends to be. People are more than willing to be different than to lose their social circle. So I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. Oh, man. Which goes back to judgment, and having a support system and everything that surrounds the fact that, you can push somebody. I mean, I coach people, you coach people. I'm always, no, you got to post this. You got to do this. You got to do this. Like, do I have to? I'm like, well, yeah. Like, you have to do that. Like, that's what's required because that's what's going to get you visible. That's how people are going to see you. Well, I don't know. Like, what are you afraid of? And usually it's their own judgment about themselves that is the number one way that hold people back. And this goes for everybody, introverts, extroverts alike. Somebody listening has not taken a chance on themselves because of what somebody else thinks about them and that opportunity. I talk to a lot of people that, they're going into the family business. Their mom and dad, whoever family, they want to go into the business. They're like, why don't I do that? And instead of letting their family down, they'll just go into the business and be miserable.
Yeah.
They won't speak up. And they'll just sit there and just do whatever they, what anybody ever tells them, because they don't want to let people down or, whatever. At some point, you got to do what makes you happy, but also capitalize on your strengths. And sometimes that introvertedness could be a strength.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said for someone that shows up as themselves and their ability to be comfortable, I guess, in their own skin to be able to do that. Because I think a lot of people just don't know how to be themselves in new situations because they don't know how. They don't know who they are because it's a new situation. But very often that tends to be because they're trying to mold themselves to please others. So they go from this state where you're yourself in any situation, and there's a bit of wiggle room somewhere. I'm naturally quieter when I'm not speaking. That's just the way it is. So if I'm not on stage, if I'm not on radio shows like this, if I'm not doing my own videos and content, I'm probably noisy for about 2 hours a day. The rest of the time, you'd be lucky to get a conversation out of me unless you know me. That's just the way it is. And when I write things or I say things or I speak or whatever the case is, some people don't realize that, we have lives outside of content creation and social media and putting ourselves out there. And I think this is where there's that combination of feeling okay with who you are in any situation, gives you that sense of security, self-awareness, self-esteem. You create this person that is who you are anyways. You're not really creating them. You're just being that person. And then you've got the case of, okay, well, how can I meet the expectations of the situation? Because if you can't do that, it doesn't matter who you are really. If you can't, if you're speaking on stage and the situation is, okay, there's, 20,000 people and it's a motivational conference and you can't be motivational and be yourself at the same time, you probably shouldn't go to that conference and speak there because that's the situation you're in. That's the expectation of that situation. I'm not a loud enough person. I can't go on stage and dance and shout and scream and wave my arms about because that's not who I am. If that's what they want, they should go and get somebody else that can do that, which is fine. I've got no no issues with being on stage as long as they're happy with me being myself on stage. Does that make sense?
That's a big one. Oh, that's a big one. I mean, I've spoken all across many industries with many speakers, and there's a couple that'll get up there and they kind of act and are a little bit different than, like, I know this person, and how you are on stage and how you are like every other time is a lot different. Like a lot.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not get up there and just, I don't know.
See, it is hard because then you've got people like actors and dancers and performers that can turn it on and turn it off, but they still know who they are behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference. It's like people talk about like trying to balance everything, trying to integrate everything. Like my seesaw, if you will, to use a bit of an image for people. My seesaw can move and stay balanced. But when people think about balance, people think that it's still. If I did that, I wouldn't do anything because it's comfy. It's comfy to not move the seesaw. If I want to be loud and noisy and then quiet, the seesaw's going to move from one opposite to the other pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. But in myself, I'm aware of that and I'm okay with that. Other people don't need to be. Other people will see me online or they see me videos or anything. Doesn't matter what it is. And they'll come across me like face to face maybe. You never know, right? The online and offline might merge sooner or later. And they go, you're really quiet offline. Is this you? It's like, yeah, well, if I'm teaching or if I'm expressing an opinion or if I'm talking to someone, it will be very awkward given at least half of my stuff is recorded to be quiet when the expectation is I'm supposed to talk. Like I wouldn't post a video of me being silent because what would be the point? It wouldn't matter. What would be the point of recording a video of me going, all right, so not doing much today, but I thought I'd just hop on, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, because videos need to be engaging. Videos need to bring value to the person that's watching. If I did that, no one would listen. No one would pay attention. There'd be but I wouldn't expect them to either, because it's not very good. I mean, I'm all for like behind the scenes stuff. Like if you're doing something like a Q&A with people while you're writing blog posts, and you do this sort of live streaming thing, right? That's okay, because you're writing and then you're talking to the camera at the same time. So there's ways that you can integrate things together that's comfortable for you. A lot of the things I do, podcasts for instance, they're all pre-recorded. I don't do a lot of live stuff similar to this one because, well, it's a bit more flexible for the people that I tend to speak to, but also I can edit it out if I need to. I can get my point across, and I can make sure that the quality is good. Because here's another thing as well, is that you can't sacrifice the quality of something. I'm not talking the sound quality. I'm talking the words that you're saying, the actual things that you're communicating. How you do it's up to you. Written, audio, video, that's fine. But when I first started, I realized that the world is going to be video and audio. Written is for people that like it. But in terms of the content side, I mean, just Instagram alone is a very visual platform. And it's not a very old platform, but it's one of the biggest platforms right now. And we use apps like TikTok now, which not many people use it because you've got to be on camera, right? Yeah. And generally it's for the kids. And I mean, I don't use TikTok, not because I don't want to, but because half of the stuff that actually does well on TikTok, I can't even do because I can't dance. So, and I can't sing. And then there's experts that go, oh, well, you could share your educational stuff on there. And I think, well, teenagers that are the majority of the app and like mid-20s-ish, like most of them don't go on TikTok to learn something new. It's an entertainment thing, and people tend to scroll pretty quickly. So you've got to realize the combination between knowing who you are, being yourself, understanding how much wiggle room that you have based on the situation that you're in, and you've got to match that with how can I show up my best? Because I'm not a natural writer. As I said, when I was writing blog posts, I started like 300 words was tough. I had to build in that habit. I had to gradually get better and better before I even decided, okay, I think I'm ready to write the book. Because you can't have a book that's 500-word chapters. It takes you forever to finish the book and make it long enough to justify it being the book, you know? A book that's only like 50-odd pages isn't really worth a read. So you've got to match the quality of what it is that you do with everything else. Like the filter is you as a person. How can you be yourself? The outcome and the quality of it, that's the skill part. That's the skill.
Yeah. Yeah, and you bring up a good point about authenticity and honesty. You know, everything I heard in there, you know, it sounds like you're going towards the authentic. Like, that's not me. I can't do that. So then I did this one thing. I'm like, oh, I know, okay. And then you even tell people, you know, hey, if that doesn't work, then try this. If that doesn't work, then do this other thing. But at least try. At least attempt. Oh, I can't do that because I'm this. I mean, I think that person's labeling themselves. And they're going to find information for their cognitive bias to reinforce what they already believe to be true about themselves. And we see this play out everywhere. We see it play out in relationships. We see it play out at your job, or if you're an entrepreneur. We just see that play out all over the place. And I'm really glad that you opened this talk up. There's been a couple of people that I coached, that said, well, I just want to really build this thing behind the scenes and let it run and, whatever. I'm like, well, we could do that, but I really think you need to be the face. Oh, no, I'm not going to be the face. No. I can't do that. I'm like, why? Like, for me, I'm like, let's do this. Like, I'm out in front. I'm like, leaders lead. Let's go. Like, I'm pumped. But some people aren't like that. And then I've actually been told that certain people have sucked energies out of an entire room. It felt like that introvert or whoever, doesn't like spotlight or whatever. Yeah, I think that's something that's another. What do you think, man? I think that's something that they battle with that maybe isn't brought to light so much.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to dissect with it because, as you said before, sometimes it's a situation that causes them to go inside themselves rather than express themselves.
That's true.
There is a lot
100%.
There's a lot to think about. I'm not gonna try to tell someone that because you haven't lived how I have, it's not allowed to impact you, right? Like things can always impact us that we don't think about. And excuse me, what tends to come to light very often is they don't want to think that they have an issue. They have something that may or may not be true. They would rather stick to that story than change it, because then that's side of it becomes comfortable. So we're staying on the edge of comfort at every level. It's like, well, no, I don't have a problem. It's this, or it's that, or it's somebody else, or it's just not for me. You come up with these little statements that allow us to cope with the fact that we're secretly belittling ourselves, convincing ourselves that we shouldn't do anything, we don't need to, no one will like us anyway, when half of that probably isn't even true. But we're not prepared to question it because that means, you know, there's a lot of cognitive bias, cognitive dissonance. We don't like being proved wrong. We'd rather be right than helpful. We'd rather be right than, you know, change for a lot of people. And unfortunately, it's easier for introverts because we don't have the pull. We don't have the pull to do it. We don't have that. Extroverts might have that pull, that crave of the social connection, the crave of putting themselves out there. Introverts don't. So we've got to, or in my case, I had to force it. I had to create it. I had to tell myself, look, you've got this mission, you've got this vision, you've got the message that you want to put out there. This means, Mike, you've got to get used to. I mean, I didn't even write Facebook posts when I first started. I scrolled Facebook and then turned it off. I didn't create. I was a consumer at the time. And I said, look, you've got to get used to this because it's not going to go away. The world's online now. You can't just sit there and hope that things change. You've got to get out there and you've got to change it yourself because nobody's going to change it for you. And it wasn't comfortable. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want to be proved wrong. No one wants to be proved wrong. It wasn't a comfortable process. When people think, oh, it must have been amazing when you really understood that you could do this. No, it wasn't. It wasn't very enjoyable at all. I hated being proved wrong. And most people stay there. But I had the pull of the mission rather than the pull of what it would take to fulfill the mission, which is different. There's a very different ballgame between, okay, I know what this is for, I know what I'm doing, but what comes along with that, that's uncomfortable. So there's that difference between you've got to put yourself out there, you know why you want to put yourself out there, but then the consequences of that, the ripple effect of that, you've got to deal with everything that comes with it.
Wow. Right on, man. You make a good point. What's your message for those listening to this episode right now who might feel like, oh, they get it, but what do I do? So is the message in your book, or what would be the message to those listening right now who might be the most introverted people and they know and understand that they have to get out of that to get into the spotlight? They're just not sure how.
What I would always suggest people do is you have to start with where they are right now, but understand that you don't have to stay there. So how you start isn't where you have to stay. And as you build your confidence, you build your level of comfortableness when you do certain things, you can add to how you show up. There's a big difference between recording a video and doing a live stream. If it's a video, you can record 50 and put the one out that felt better. But you've recorded 50 and you hated 49. But the one that you did like, okay, I'll put that one out. You know, the one that you feel less, the one that you hate less, right? For want of a better expression. I didn't hate this one. That might be okay. Same with like writing stuff. You know, if you're perfectly fine posting like about your day online, then do that to start with. You don't have to show up and tell people how to better themselves like what me and you do. in terms of like having an expertise or a specialist subject that you're known for, you don't have to do that straight away, because there's a very big difference between, hey, here's my pet cat and here's 5 ways to better your life. It's a very different feel, not just to the person sort of consuming it, we'll get to that, but the person creating it, it's a different feel for them as well. You don't have to stay with the cat pictures or the food pictures. You don't have to stay there. You can add bits and add layers as you go along. Same with like tweets and things. Now, Twitter's pretty good for building that level of confidence, because you can do everything on Twitter. Little texts, little tweets, pictures, videos. I think they allow audio little tweets as well. You can do a live stream on there if you want to. And Twitter's so fast that it disappears pretty quickly as well. So you have the benefit of being able to scream, I guess, at the void. And you can get better, get the repetitions in, and it doesn't get seen by millions and millions and millions of people, especially when you first start.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have that pressure.
Yeah.
You don't have that level of responsibility. Where somewhere like Facebook, where your friends will see it, different again. I'm perfectly happy posting on certain platforms because I know that my family won't see it. It's a completely different story if I go, oh, the family will see this. Oh, that's a big difference. Like when the book comes out, everyone's like, oh, you should tell your family about it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I'd rather keep it to all the strangers that just think they know me. Very different for the people that do actually know me. So again, you've got to, where you are right now, maybe go a couple of steps outside what's comfortable. Maybe challenge yourself a little bit. But when that gets comfortable and safe, I guess, there's nothing wrong in expanding. There's nothing wrong in adding, changing things up. And I think that's the biggest thing. You need to be able to show up somehow first, and then figure out what you can learn to get better at, what you can do straight away, what you can do in the future, and then what you're going to stay away from. Are you going to stay away from video altogether? Are you going to learn how to have a podcast? Or are you going to do written posts on social media? Or are you going to focus on magazines and getting featured in magazines? Because again, very different feel, social media posts to being featured in magazines. It's a different ball game when you start showing up in different places, and that's what it's all about. But start with where you're at, figure out how you're going to expand, and use who you are as a person, what you're best at, as you said. Use that as your filter to get you going. But all of that is a little bit redundant if you don't know how to be yourself. If you don't know how to do that, then there's so many people that are unfulfilled with themselves and their achievements because they're looking for the outward validation almost. When knowing who you are and how you show up and being okay with that dumbs that down a little bit. That helps that simmer down a touch. And as long as you are happy with how you're showing up and who you are when you show up, that can counteract a lot of the issues further down the line when the pressure mounts up. As I'm sure you're aware, once your audience grows, your reputation grows, the pressure grows with it. The responsibility grows with it. You need to be the person that can handle that. Otherwise, you won't grow because you're afraid of what will happen when you do.
Love it, man. So well said and well articulated, man. So good. So everybody listening right now, I want you to go to the link inside the show notes where it says order the book. The book is bit.ly/Michael Bryan book, My Introvert Journey to Being Visible. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It is always an honor to host you.
My pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, man. Where do you want the listeners to go? Do you want them to go to social media? Do you want them to go to a certain website, or is the Bitly site where you want to direct them?
The Bitly site takes them to the waiting list for the book. So for those that want an email with the Amazon links rather than having to scroll through social media, because the book comes out on the 19th of November. So that's the day it all comes out. And obviously the price will be massively reduced for people that buy on that day. I've got prizes, there are competitions, I've got giveaways for people that buy the book and share it and all those things. And you get all the details when you sign up as well. So you don't just get those links, you get a bit of an itinerary of the launch day as well. So if you want access to the book, you don't want to scroll through social media and pray that you find it, that's the best way to do that. But if you want to follow me on social media, you want to get involved with the events and the competitions and all those things, then it's the Michael Bryan on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Love it. Again, thank you so much for your time, man, and I wish you the best on this book success, man.
Thanks, Sean. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Life Transformation Radio listeners, if anything has resonated with our conversation today with our guest, Mike McDonnell, go check out his book. Go check out his social media links. Join in the groups that he's in and in the conversations. He's absolutely brilliant. He puts on amazing, amazing events. He speaks on amazing topics. This is a guy you need to know. If you're introverted, have a conversation with him. It's going to be absolutely worth your while. So go to those links, social media links. Go look at go listen to our previous episode, From the Shadows to the Spotlight. It's right there in the show notes from June 3rd. It's an excellent, excellent episode. And if someone listening right now wants to donate to our cause, donate to Life Transformation Radio, there's a link right there too. You can click that and donate whatever your heart desires. With that, I close the show by saying, live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. And I call this living your brand. So until next episode, live a great life.